Hey guys, this is Adam for FX279.com and welcome back to the Java tutorials. I apologize for it being such a long time in between tutorials. I just haven't had a whole lot of time to do videos. However, I am planning on returning to the Java tutorial series, and then later possibly making a few more videos with actual applications of Java using different sorts of programs to so that we can figure out how Java actually works in the real world. Um, so what we're going to work on today is loops. We got all kinds of loops in Java. They're just so much fun. We got for loops, we got while loops, we got do while loops, and it's just a whole ton of fun. So let's just go ahead and set up our class here. We've got public class basic Java, and we've imported the scanner utility. So public static void main string args. And as always, don't worry about that just yet. I will explain this entire header, but we need to know a few more things before I can explain it in detail. Let's make our scanner object. Scanner sc equals new scanner system.in. And what we're going to work on first is the for loop. So for loops, generally whenever you'll see them, they will have a very, very specific layout. It really doesn't diverge much from the norm of how people use it, so I'll just go ahead and show you that. Uh, First, we're just going to ask system.out.println, enter a number. Right, and int a equals sc.next int to grab that number. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to have a auto increment system, which means that every time it is run, we're going to add 1 to this number. So say we entered 1 up here, then it's going to print out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 10 numbers after what you entered. So normally what you would have to do is do system.out println a, and then you would have to do this 10 more times. A plus 1. If I can actually type. Sorry, I have to turn my lights on my keyboard so I can actually see. A plus 2, you'd have to do it 10 times. So that's not efficient. This is very inefficient. What we can do is put this in a loop, and every single time it goes through, we're going to add 1 to it. So what we're going to do is do for, start a for loop, open parentheses, int I equals 0. Now you don't have to use I, but you'll see that most commonly people use I when setting up for loops. Colon, I is less than or equal to 9. Now, you're going to ask yourself, wait, you just said 10. So what is 10? Why are you putting 9, you know? The thing is, actually I think this is going to have to be, yeah, that'll be less than or equal to. So, you notice that in the human language, or I guess it's not really a language, but in mathematics, we typically don't start at 0. We usually start at 1. If you're going to start, if you say someone, just start counting at me, they're not going to go 0, 1, 2. They're just going to go 1, 2. But in programming, we typically start at 0, and that applies to a lot of things. I just took spaces out there, by the way. I wasn't changing anything. Like arrays, for example, which I'll go over in a couple of tutorials. So we typically start at 0, which means that if we're going 0 to 10, that's actually 11 numbers right there, if you think about it. 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 11 numbers if you count it off on your fingers. So to actually get 10 times through, we go to 9. Now, if you're kind of confused by this, there's a simple way around this. Just set this equal to 1 and this equal to 10. And that way you know that you're getting actual 10 loops through this for loop. However, I wouldn't say it's frowned upon, but it's just the normal way of starting at 0. You're always going to want to be able to start at 0. in a for loop and still know how many loops you're going to get through. Now, what we're doing here is I is less than or equal to 9. And the reason we do that is because if we did I equals 9, that wouldn't make sense. First of all, you're setting it equal to 9. However, if we did I equals 9, also that wouldn't make sense. You're like 4 into I equals I. What? No, it doesn't. That's for ifs. So what we could do is put doesn't equal to. Whoops. Doesn't equal 9. But that would only give us 0 to 8, because as soon as I equals 9, it's going to stop. It's not going to do anymore. So what we're going to do is just do less than or equal to. So that'll go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, because it's less than or equal to. So that may be a little bit of a brain confuser to you, but just stay with me for now, and you'll eventually see how this works. And what we're going to do is I plus plus. And if I haven't talked about it before, I'm not really sure if I have. Plus plus is just a simple way of saying I equals I plus 1. So if you think about it, we have 0, and then so if you did 0 equals 0 plus 1, that would be 1, right? Because 0 equals 0 plus 1. So basically we have a variable here. Instead of 0, we have I. And so every time it goes through, it's going to increment I by 1. So that's plus plus. That's just a simple shorthand of doing it that Java understands. It makes it very helpful. We could just as easily put I equals I plus 1, or we could do I plus equals 1. But instead of doing all of those, we just do I plus plus, because it's simple, it's short, it fits in the for loop, and that's what you'll see most people doing. So we'll get inside this for loop right here, and what we're going to do is we're going to do system.out.println a plus I. So on the first run through, it's just going to print out a because I is 0. So you're going to have whatever your number was plus 0, which is going to equal your number. But every time after that, as soon as this for loop is done right here, it's going to add 1 to I. Actually, as it starts, it's going to add 1 to I, but not the first time. So you can think about it as it ends, it's going to add 1 to I. So the next time it goes through this for loop, you're going to have a plus 1 instead of a plus 0. So that's going to give you your number plus 1. So that may be a little bit confusing. Let's just go ahead and run this real quick. Oh, I hope I'm not. Okay, good. Enter a number. Let's just put, for the sake of this, let's just put 0. It's going to put 1, 2, or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright? So that proves to you that on the first run, it's 0 plus 0, and it printed out 0. Then we had 0 plus 1, and we have an auto-incrementing system, and you can see this thing right here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, as opposed to the 10 lines that you would otherwise have to have incrementing this variable by 1 each time. So what you're doing is you're saving yourself a lot of space, and you're having a variable that you can use over and over again, just incrementing itself each time. So it's a very, very effective way to do something. So that's basically the for loop. We'll leave that for now. And then what I'm going to do is show you how to do a do-while loop. We'll skip the while loop for now, and I'll just show you how to do a do-while loop. Basically what these are useful for, at least in my usage of them, I always use them as a checking if you want to do something again. Asking the user, would you want to do something again? So what we're going to do is we're going to define string ants equals null. And if I hadn't said anything about that before, null is just a placeholder. It means there's nothing there. And then we're going to do do, and we'll put a bracket around all of this. And then as soon as the bracket is over, you're going to see here, it's going to say, oh, well, you had a do, why don't you have a while? So that reminds you, while ants dot equals ignore case. I'm not sure if I've talked about this before because it's been forever since I've done a Java tutorial, but basically to check equality of a string, instead of doing equals equals, you do dot equals. And we can also throw in the ignore. It works just like this, dot equals, but that means that if someone types, so you have in here equals or yes, but if someone's input is yes, 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 anything like that, then it will be false because you're not exactly equaling what is typed here. We can get around that by typing dot equals ignore case, and that means this yes, this yes, this yes, they're all the same because they're all the same characters. So that's just an easy way of doing that. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna say, well, every single time answer is gonna be no. You're just going through here. It's obviously gonna be no. So what we'll do is we'll ask the user system dot out print ln, would you like to run this again? And then we'll do ants equals st.next. So basically what we've done is we've defined this variable up here, and the reason we've defined it up here as opposed to here is because of the scope of variables. Now that means that if you put string ants down here, it's contained within this for loop, or this do loop. So only inside these two brackets is that variable answer actually, or ANS, string answer, is actually a recognized variable. Otherwise, outside that, this has no idea what is a variable. Like, it wants me to create a local variable. It wants me to put it up there so it can actually see what answer is. And if we do that, we can see that this down here, if this is actually outside this, then both the while loop and the inside the do while loop can actually read this one variable, and they all know what it is. So I'll just put this as null. When working with strings, I typically put them as null instead of just defining them like this. Just kind of out of habit. A lot of the times, if you're working with variables and you're testing them against something, and say you have an error in your code and you forgot to ask, or you forgot to set the variable equal to something, then you will get a null usage error. I'm not even sure if that's the right word to use, usage, but you'll get an error in your code that tells you exactly where your error is, and also why it's because it's null. And if it's null, then you'll know because the variable has never changed from when you defined it. So you need to go back into your code and redefine what answer is. So here we can clearly see that we are defining it, but I like to just have that up there just so I know. Sometimes it'll say answer has not been defined, answer blah blah blah. So we'll just put that there, and then you will see if we run the program, enter a number, we'll put 5. And we say, would you like to run this again? Yes. Enter a number. Because we've asked, we said, do all this while answer equals yes. And the great thing about this is this works as many times as you want. So if you say no, we can actually redefine answer to equal no. And then it will do the check. It will say, while answer, does it equal yes? No, it doesn't. So we'll just stop. We'll jump out of this this do while loop, and we're done. So hope that makes a little bit of sense to you. Just try out do while loops and for loops by yourself. It'll become a lot more apparent to you. And the last thing I'll go over is pretty easy based on what we've already talked about. It's the while loop. So basically it's just while. Oh, let me talk about this first. The difference between a for loop and a do while loop is that the do while loop, actually shut up. The do while loop actually checks it after the loop has finished. So after we've done all this, it's going to check if the person's answer equaled yes. Now we wouldn't want that starting at we wouldn't want a for loop checking if it was equal to yes, because it's equal to null up here. You need to check it after the user's input has been entered. So real quick, we'll do a while loop. So while I is less than 2, so that's, oh, forgot the, okay, so this hasn't been defined yet. So we'll do while int I is less than, forgot to define int I, of course. So we'll do int I equals 0. While int I is less than 2, system.out.print ln I is less than 2. Just to show you how this works. And then we'll do I++. So this should only run one time. Actually, sorry, it should run 2 times because I is going to be 0 the first time, and then it's going to, be incremented, and then it's going to run through the second time. It's going to be 1, which is also less than 2, and it's going to be incremented again, and it'll be 2, and it's going to go, well, is 2 less than 2? No, it's not, so we're not going to run this, and it's going to ask if we'd like to run it again. So let's go ahead and do this, enter a number, 3, blah, blah, blah. Oop, did I forgot? Oh, yeah. I have to put this up here, sorry, before we actually ask the thing. That was stupid. Because we're asking if we would like to continue before we had actually finished our program. 3, and then we're going to do I is less than 2, so it prints out twice because it's going 0 and then 1. So this is a simple while loop. It's a for loop, and this is a do while loop. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. If it doesn't, just check it out. What's great about this also, if you're checking for one thing, you only want yes. That's the only reason you would be running again. So anything else that the user entered is a no. You know, if you really wanted to, you could check if it equals no, if it equals anything else but yes or no, then you could say, oh, that's not an option. But the great thing about this is that the only thing you're looking for is a yes here, and anything else is just, whatever. You're crazy. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. If it doesn't, go ahead and play around with it, and I hope it does. See you later.